Alright, what is good everyone? It's your boy Darth Sora, and today I want to talk about something I see commonly in the Star Wars community, and that is a lot of hate and negativity towards the sequel trilogy. Now, I will admit I am pretty new to the Star Wars community, and I joined right before The Rise of Skywalker came out, so it's definitely a very hot and trending topic at the moment. You know, the sequel trilogy, and especially The Rise of Skywalker, the ending to the sequel trilogy, and the end to the Skywalker saga. But one of the biggest things I come across whenever it comes to negativity in Star Wars is the constant hate for the sequel trilogy. Now, I want to talk about why I personally enjoy the sequel trilogy. It might not be my favorite, but to me, it's still Star Wars, it still feels like Star Wars, and I love it. And I'm going to explain to you why, and just kind of give my 2 cents as being a new, member of the online Star Wars community on how this kind of, might stray people away from really getting involved in the community. So, when it comes to me personally, the reason I love the sequel trilogy is because it still gives me that Star Wars feel, It's still a story about family. There's a lot of twists and turns, epic battles, and just all the things about Star Wars that I've come to love and know and expect from the series. Now, I will personally admit, I do think this is the weakest trilogy, personally. My favorite is the original trilogy as a whole trilogy. I think it's the most consistent, and it provides the most as a complete trilogy. My favorite standalone movie is from the prequel trilogy. It is Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. And when it comes to the sequel trilogy, I think it's pretty consistent. It's pretty consistently good. None of it's great, none of it's amazing, but I get like a good between 7 and 8 for every movie. Now, when it comes to the sequels, when it comes to the prequels for me, I think Revenge of the Sith is like a 9. Phantom Menace is like an 8, and then Attack of the Clones is like a 7. In the original trilogy, they're all like 8 and 9s. I have Empire Strikes Back and Revenge of the Sith about the same as a 9 out of 10, but me personally, I think Revenge of the Sith is a little bit better. Might be a 9.2, and Empire Strikes Back is a 9, but that's a different topic, different time. Talking about the sequel trilogy, I just think that if you watch the sequel trilogy and you don't get the Star Wars feeling, then I feel like you have a clouded judgment, because it has everything that you would expect and want from a Star Wars series. I do think a couple of the writing decisions and twists that they offer in this trilogy could have been done a little bit better. I think some of the pacings of the movies could have been done a little bit better. I have gripes with all the Star Wars movies in their own right. Everything can be better, even if it's great. And I don't think the sequel trilogy is much different in that aspect. I do think, there are a couple questionable decisions, more questionable decisions than there are in the other trilogies. But overall, like I said, I really enjoy it, and I really think there's characters you can really get behind. I love Rey. I love Finn. I love Kylo in Episode 9. 7 and 8, I think he's a brat. I think Luke's character, even though I'm not the happiest with the direction he went in the direction of most Jedi. Something very tragic happened that he feels personally responsible for, and he went into exile because he didn't know what to do with himself. That is a very common Jedi thing, and I think in The Rise of Skywalker, the way he talked to Rey and the piece of advice that he gave, it redeemed his character a lot, and I think it was really well done. I love Leia in this series, or in this trilogy. Sorry, I don't want to say series. I love her in the series, but we're talking about the sequel trilogy. In this trilogy, I think she's a very powerful character, like she's always been, but she is more of a main character when it comes to what's going on in the galaxy and with the rebellion. And the fact that we found out that she's training Rey in Episode 9 and she became a Jedi and was taught by Luke, I think that adds a lot more to the character that I absolutely love. I love that Han died and he came back. I'm pretty sure that was, Leia doing that, but just that Han and Ben Solo moment was great. Who doesn't love Chewbacca? I like how they brought back a lot of characters and fit them into the story very well. I will say Palpatine's return was kind of weak in my opinion, and that's one of my biggest gripes with the sequel trilogy. Is Palpatine didn't really have an explanation. It kind of felt forced, and I hope maybe if we get a better explanation, it will kind of round it out and even it out a little bit better. But as right now, that's definitely one of the weaker points of the sequel trilogy in my opinion. But I feel like there's a lot of characters that you can really enjoy. I think the overall story and overall message is very good. And like I said, there's a few decisions I wish they would have done differently. Like I think they should have honored the character of Anakin Skywalker a little bit better than they did, especially in the conclusion with the Rise of Skywalker. I would have liked to see, more of Anakin or his Force Ghost appear and at least, do something, which I think they really dropped the ball on that. So I definitely give you guys some points in the critiques and some of maybe like the not so great opinions you might have on the sequel trilogy. But as a whole, I do think this trilogy offers enough of Star Wars for a real Star Wars fan to at least enjoy it to a certain degree. And if not, like I said, I think you're very, very clouded. Your judgment is clouded and you want to hate it. And I was arguing with someone on Twitter. I don't know why I, even accepted this, but I was talking about, I'm really happy to see Kanan as a Padawan in the Clone Wars trailer. And people are like, yeah, that's a cancerous Disney character. Look at them trying to infiltrate, our pure Star Wars. I was just like, what am I listening to? Like, if you watch Rebels, you can't hate Kanan. You might not love Kanan, but you can't hate him. Like, them adding him as a Padawan, he's a Jedi, like, it's canon. You can't hate that. And especially it's promoting their, their own design character. And it's a lovable character. It's like, when I see that, I was just like, I bet you didn't even watch Rebels. You just know Rebels was made by, Disney. And you're like, this is trash. Didn't watch it. You don't know anything about the character. But your hate runs that deep that you won't even give a character a chance. And even if you do give it a chance, you're not giving it a fair chance. And I can guarantee that. So to me, it's just some of the things I read online are ridiculous. And you're going to experience that online no matter what. But I think being a new member of the online Star Wars community and being in a bunch of other online communities for video games and stuff like that, I will say the Star Wars community is so privileged when it comes to the amount of content and depth this universe has. And you guys are so spoiled and you guys don't even know it. Most of the hardcore Star Wars fans are not nearly as hardcore of fans of other things. And for me, I'm an ex-professional Super Smash Bros. Player. I love a lot of things. That's a community I'm very, very deep into. And the Star Wars community just has everything. And, they still hate on, things like the sequel trilogy, things like Rebels, things that Disney has done just to spite it. And I feel like it's a little bit ridiculous. And I will say, most of the community, like 85-90% of the community I met is amazing. They're great people. They're super nice, and they've been more than willing to help me out, and I appreciate it a lot, and I feel welcomed. But I think the radical and hardcore side of the Star Wars community is a little bit more radical and hardcore than I've seen in any community I've been a part of. And, Star Wars is a much older community. Star Wars has been around for over 40 years. It makes sense. Some of these fans that I'm probably interacting with online have been fans for 40 years, and I don't blame them, for being as passionate as they are. But when you meet someone that's new to the community, if you have so much hate and negativity, coming out, and, people can't have opinions and you'll attack them for their opinions, even if they're not being malicious at all, then it's very off-putting, to new people. They're like, I don't want to join this community. This community, is full of, buttholes, people that are just really mean. And I just think people have to remember that you can be passionate, but there's a time and place to really, dig into someone. And if someone's just giving an opinion and they like something, even if you don't like it nearly as much as them, you don't have to be, that way. You don't have to be super negative. You have to put someone down. I feel like the Star Wars community, or like the hardcore Star Wars community towards the sequels, do that, and it's unnecessary and it's very off-putting. So I just wanted to talk about it and tell you guys why I like the sequel trilogy, and why I think if you're a true lover of Star Wars, you shouldn't hate it. You might not love it, but there's enough Star Wars in there that you can't truly hate it. And if you do, I think you're just blinded by, maybe ignorance is the best way to say it. And you might hate me for saying that, but I gotta say it. That's my feelings. And, I don't mean to be rude to anyone. And I really think I'm trying to be as nice as possible. But I hope the negativity can be toned down a bit. I hope you guys are just willing to let people have their opinions. For me personally, if you don't love the sequel trilogy, even if you don't like it at all, you know what? I respect your opinion. And I might not agree with you, but I'll be like, you know what? Especially if you give me reasons and they're valid and they're not just like, oh yeah, it sucks, and that's it. I'll be like, you know what, man? I respect that. I don't agree, but we're all different and you like different things than I do, and I respect your opinion. But if I'm just like, hey guys, I really like The Rise of Skywalker, and then someone hits me up on Twitter, you're an idiot, you don't know anything about Star Wars, how could you like this garbage, Disney is trash, they ruined Star Wars, yada yada yada. I'm like, dang, I just said I like The Rise of Skywalker, and now this guy is just jumping down my throat. Holy crap. So just keep that in mind moving forward. I know, some of these people might have been a part of this community forever, but there's new people joining every day. And if you're a true fan, you want people to have that same love for something you love so much. So I'm going to end this video here. I hope you guys enjoyed this real talk discussion. And as always, may the Force be with you.